What's up everybody, back with some more PTR raid testing, and today we're taking a look at Mythic Kel'thuzad in the new raid Sanctum of Domination. Keep in mind this is not a guide on how to do the fight, and I will mostly focus on the Mythic part of this encounter. What's new on Mythic, how and if it changes the overall approach to the fight, and my thoughts on the overall encounter. And if you want to see more of the mechanics, you can check out my heroic video from this fight. So what is new on Mythic for Mr. Never Dies? Well, apart from the standard numerical tuning, more of everything, and in this case I really mean more of everything. Like 5 tank debuffs and souls spawning from the tank mechanic, but now you also start with Kel'thuzad having 2 stacks of Necrotic Surge. And inside the Phylactery you have to deal with some foul winds, and the shadow fissures now leave pools. So let's go through that a bit and how it changes the encounter. So starting off with the Necrotic Surge. Necrotic Surge is the buff that KT normally gets following a Phylactery phase, which increases his damage done by 5% per stack, but also increases the number of players inflicted by Oblivion Echo and Glacial Wrath. So normally you'd get 3 players targeted by Oblivion Echoes and 2 by Glacial Wrath, and this would then be increased by 1 after each Phylactery phase. Now on Mythic you start with 5 Echoes and 4 Glacial Wraths. The Echoes are the silent zones that players get around them and eventually drop as a zone on the ground, which you could use to silence the tank souls that spawns following the soul fracture. These zones will also spawn Frostbound Devoted, meaning you'll get a lot more of these at any given time. And the Glacial Wrath is the mechanic that spawns the spike, which you have to kill in a staggered fashion so you don't blow up the raid. Each spike deals around 22k raid-wide damage and a dot that deals around 3k damage every second for 10 seconds, and this one stacks. You can survive 2 going off at roughly the same time with cooldowns, and most likely 3 of them by stacking a ton of cooldowns and staggering them by like a second or so. Now these 2 by themselves changes the fight a bit, as you have to keep a closer eye on the spikes and get more devoted to deal with, but it's the combination of this and the rest of the upscaled fight that really makes it a Mythic encounter. Because phase 1 really is a cluster fudge and extremely hectic, as you have so many things that feels like it's a priority to deal with. You need to kill 5 of the tank souls before a new tank smack or you lose a tank. You have to nuke down at least 2 spikes fairly fast, whilst having to deal with a swarm of Frostbound adds, while having to soak the big frost blast and making sure to get rid of the roots, and pretty much all of that at the same time. So figuring out the priority of each of this, as well as how to best manage it and having the DPS and healing to do so, was pretty insane, but also a lot of fun. One thing we did that helped a lot was to not use the silence zones for the tank adds and instead just stack them in one spot to make sure all the devoted spawn from the same location, to keep them from running around and blowing up random players in the raid. The trade-off here though is you now have to manually interrupt the 5 tank souls around the room, and missing 1 cast could easily turn into a wipe due to all of the other damage that's going on, especially from the spikes. We also tried having players run into the Frostbound Devoted if they were fixated, which seemed to work pretty well, as you could easily survive detonation alone. It's only really dangerous if multiple players get hit by it. Either way, it was very easy to fall behind on damage and healing, being too slow on tank adds, killing off spikes too fast or slow, missing an interrupt, and the fight will only get harder following each Phylactery, as you'll get 1 more spike and 1 more echo, which means more devoted following each of these. And glacial spikes will be a lot more difficult dealing with. By the end of the fight you'll have like 7 of them, which means you'll be forced to do 2 + 2 + 3 in some order, whilst having more of everything else, and Kel'thuzad doing 15% more damage than he did during your first phase 1. Now for the intermission or inside the Phylactery, as I mentioned earlier, you'll get foul winds and pools. Pretty straightforward. Whenever a shadow fissure spawn, which is the swirl on the ground that deals a metric ton of damage and knock you back, they will leave a shadow pool on the ground, which also deals damage if you stand in it, and this severely reduces the already tiny amount of space you have inside. Now to top this off, the remnant of Kel'thuzad will periodically cast foul winds, which is a channeled pushback. An emphasis on the push. You could say it kinda blows. Now this just makes the phase a lot more punishing, and like I said, reduces the safe space you can use while dodging all the mechanics in here. I assume you kinda want to stack as a group and move as a group in here to force the fissures to spawn where you are rather than all over the place, to increase the amount of space you have. Didn't get to try that out much since I tanks, and tanks shouldn't go in, but makes sense in my head. Move as a group, dodge to beam as a group. Should work. Other than that, one thing that happened in phase 1 that wasn't in a journal, so I'm unsure if it's intended, but a bit into phase 1, we did get an Abomination Add as well, which you usually only get in phase 2. But like I said, don't know if that was intended. Now, if it is intended, it does complicate phase 1 a bit more, as one tank will have to have both the Add and KT, as the other tank will be debuffed by soul exhaustion, taking 2500% more physical damage, which means if the Abomination farts in your general direction, you will explode. And because of this, you have to deal with that set of tank souls a lot faster, so the debuff tank has time to clear their stacks, taunt the Abomination, get their taunt cooldown back before the next tank smack, or that tank will go bye-bye. Or you're a brewmaster and you statue taunt. But yeah, if that's intended, it adds even more stress to an already extremely hectic fight. And well, that's pretty much it for this fight on Mythic. Seems simple enough. Gotta say though, when I tried this on Heroic, I didn't really get what the fuss was about. Everyone seemed to absolutely love this fight, and I was kind of like, it's aight. However, trying it on Mythic, I totally see it. It was insane. So much stuff going on, and so much stuff going on in the right way. Because sometimes Blizzard can throw in 100 mechanics at the same time, and 90% of them just feels like complete ass or super annoying to deal with. But I didn't get that feeling at all. Everything felt great, all the mechanics worked well together in a really punishing way. Guess I just like the way it hurts. TLDR, as the penultimate raid boss in Sanctum of Domination, it sure as hell deserves that spot, and I am so looking forward to progressing on this one. Top of this, I will cover all the bosses on PTR, and proper guides will be out once the raid is released. And I'm streaming all of the raid testing on PTR, so don't forget to check that out whenever there's raid testing announced. Otherwise, I'm streaming all of our main progression once it's live on Mondays and Tuesdays. If you have any questions at all about this encounter, hit me up in the comments or become a patron and get access to the Stankie Discord, where you can get help with anything raiding related. Now don't forget the usual stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.